Elemental is one of the most visually explosive caster specs in World of Warcraft. You wield the raw power of fire, lightning, earth and storms to overwhelm enemies with massive elemental magic damage. This spec revolves around building maelstrom energy through your spells before unleashing it in devastating bursts, hurling huge elemental attacks at single targets or shattering the ground beneath entire groups of enemies. In this guide we're going to break down everything step by step from your core abilities to basic rotations, all the way through to cooldowns, AoE and common mistakes new elemental players make. Lightning Bolt is the main single target filler spell for Elemental. It deals damage and grants you Maelstrom. It can be empowered by Stormkeeper and Master of the Elements. On most raid fights this will be the spell that you spam the majority of the time while waiting for other abilities to come up or for other effects to come into play. Flame Shock is your main damage over time spell. It deals ticking damage and causes all lava bursts to be a critical strike. It can cause a lava surge proc that will grant you an instant cast lava burst. You should try to keep Flame Shock up 100% of the time, and you can refresh it when there are 6 seconds left to get the full effect of Pandemic. Lava Burst is either a spell that is used to buff your other spells, or a fairly used ability that deals moderate damage. Use of this spell depends on your hero talents. The Farseer hero talents will see you using this spell quite often, but the Stormbringer hero talents will see you only using it to buff other spells with Master of the Elements. Chain Lightning is your main multiple target filler spell. It again deals damage to targets and grants you Maelstrom, can be empowered by Stormkeeper and Master of the Elements. You will mainly use this spell in multiple target situations to generate more Maelstrom. Earth Shock is one of your main spender spells, dealing instant high damage to your target. It can be empowered by Master of the Elements and can interact with the Aftershock talent to return the Maelstrom that was spent. Earthshock is in a choice node against the next ability that is coming up. It is generally seen as weaker, but instant cast, granting you more mobility. Elemental Blast is a main spender spell that has a cast time that deals very high damage to your target, and grants you one of 3 possible buffs. It can also be empowered by Master of the Elements and interact with the Aftershock talent the same as Earthshock. Elemental Blast is stronger than Earthshock, and it grants you these buffs that can either give you crit, haste, or mastery. Its only downside being its lack of mobility. Earthquake is your main spender spell in multiple target situations, and has the added bonus of sometimes knocking enemies down. It can also be empowered by Master of the Elements and interact with the Aftershock talent. Although it may come across as a fire and forget ability, Earthquake does have some nuance, as you need to be aware of where your tank is going to be taking the enemies, as Earthquake will stay where it is placed. Stormkeeper is one of your main cooldown abilities, enhancing your next 2 casts of Lightning Bolt or Chain Lightning. Stormkeeper increases their damage by 150% and causes them to trigger your Overload Master on all targets. It also makes them instant cast. It has a 45-second cooldown, so use it wisely. Ascendance is your largest cooldown, turning you into an ascended being for 15 seconds and increasing the potency of your overloads. It grants them 75% increased damage and causes them an additional proc of elemental overload. Ascendance is easily one of the strongest cooldowns in the game. You will want to get as many of your spenders off while in Ascendance as is possible, being that they get 75% increased damage and an additional proc of elemental overload. This means that your spenders will be absolutely juiced during Ascendance. It is always worth lining Ascendance up with Stormkeeper, as that also forces elemental overloads to occur. You will currently be using Stormbringer for both single target and AoE Mythic Plus in Elemental. You can find my talent builds in the video description below. Because of this, we need to speak about another ability called Tempest. Tempest will occasionally replace your Lightning Bolt ability. It is a vastly empowered AoE Crash of Lightning. It can be buffed by Master of the Elements and also cause elemental overloads. You will always immediately get a Tempest proc whenever you use Ascendance, and whenever you spend Maelstrom, there is a chance for every Maelstrom spent that you will get another Tempest. Also, after you use Tempest, you will get a charge of Stormkeeper. Finally, and we'll break this down later, whenever you Tempest an enemy, it will apply Lightning Rod to the target. Lightning Rod is an endgame talent that will cause the target to suffer 10% of all damage caused by your Chain Lightning and Lightning Bolt spells. It is applied by any spender you cast and Tempest. If you cast Earthquake, it will try to find a target without Lightning Rod before applying it. You'll see when I cast Elemental Blast, the target is afflicted with Lightning Rod. When I attack another target, you can see these small zaps of lightning, dealing 10% of my damage to that target with Lightning Rod. Lightning Rod can be applied to multiple targets. See here how I managed to apply Lightning Rod to 2 different targets using Tempest and Elemental Blast. Then when I hit the third target, both of those other 2 are hit by the Lightning Rod effect. In AoE, this works slightly differently. Whenever I cast Earthquake, you'll see that Lightning Rod appears on a different target than the one I'm targeting, if that one already has Lightning Rod. This is because Earthquake smart targets Lightning Rod onto whatever target inside the area does not currently have it. This does not apply to Tempest. Although Tempest hits in AoE, it only applies Lightning Rod to your main target, so make sure you're target swapping between casts. Let's talk about your rotation. Rotations these days are more of a set priority system than a physical rotation of spells you cast in an order. Thereby, your highest priority spells are always Stormkeeper and Ascendant. Outside of your cooldowns, your next priority is to maintain Flame Shock on your priority target. It is not usually worth spreading Flame Shock without the Voltaic Blaze talent. Flame Shock causes all of your lava bursts against that target to critically hit, and has a chance to grant you an instant cast lava burst every tick. Next up is Lava Burst, which you will only cast if you do not have the Master of the Elements buff. The buff increases the damage of your next Frost, Nature or Physical spell by 15%, so you will end up weaving in Lava Bursts between other abilities. Your other abilities now just sit in an order based on how good they are with the Master of the Elements buff. Starting with Tempest with the buff, a Stormkeeper empowered Lightning Bolt with the buff, an Elemental Blast with or without the buff, or just a plain Tempest. So your final rotation ends up looking something like this. Using Stormkeeper on cooldown, using Ascendant with Stormkeeper unless you will lose a usage, maintaining your Flame Shock, using Lava Burst to get Master of the Elements, using Tempest with the buff, using a charged Stormkeeper Lightning Bolt with the buff, using Elemental Blast with or without the buff, and then using Tempest without the buff, filling with Lightning Bolt. Correctly carrying out your rotation takes time and practice. You should go to the target dummies and just practice getting that priority correct. Something you'll notice as you're watching me is that I am not holding Lava Burst to use on specific spells. It is better to just get those buffs out and use them, and if they line up with the correct spells, remember that priority and use them at the right time. So let's talk about your opener. Your opener is the order in which you cast your spells and abilities at the start of an encounter. It doesn't always adhere to your priority, it is usually a set order of spells which you can learn. So your opener looks something like this. With 3 seconds to the pull, you use Stormkeeper. With 1.5 seconds, you use Lava Burst so it will hit on pull. On pull, you Ascendant, then you Lava Burst, Tempest, and fire off a Stormkeeper empowered Lightning Bolt. After that, you return to your normal priority order. So here we'll be using Heroism in this opener as if it was a raid boss pull. Start by using Stormkeeper at the 3 second mark, and then start channeling a Lava Burst. As soon as that's in air, I hit Ascendant, Heroism, and then I get ready with another Lava Burst into Tempest. We then fire off those empowered Lightning Bolts, and a Lava Burst on the last one. Once I have enough power, I use a Lava Burst into Elemental Blast, which then resets my Elemental Blast, so I just use it again. Lava Burst into Tempest, and then continue my normal rotation after that. This will not always be the same because I managed to get an Aftershock proc here, but generally speaking, you want to just continually get used to that opening rotation and going back to your priority, and you'll see massive DPS increase. Now let's look at multi-target rotation. In multiple target situations, your build is changed slightly, as you do not have the Master of the Elements talent anymore, but this means you don't have to manage it. The AoE rotation can look a bit daunting at first, but it is quite simple. Firstly, we keep doing Stormkeeper, Ascendant, and Voltaic Blades as usual. Next, if we have 0 buffs of our Elemental Blast and less than 2 Tempest procs, we use that. Next we come to a fork. Up to 3 targets we want to keep using Elemental Blast, and we keep on rotating it to put Lightning Rods on different targets. If there are 4 or more targets, we want to use Earthquake until we have Lightning Rod on all targets. Next we want to spend Tempest if we have 2 stacks and will not go over 4 Stormkeeper procs. Remember that Tempest will give you a Stormkeeper proc when you use it. Then we want to use a Stormkeeper proc to chain lightning as long as it will not overcap our Maelstrom. We want to go back to using Elemental Blast if all targets already have Lightning Rod on them. And finally we want to spend any Tempest remaining. Remember to fill with chain lightning. With the AoE rotation, one of the hardest bits is actually seeing that all the mobs have Lightning Rod because of the stacking plates. The important thing is to try and make sure you keep up a buff from your Elemental Blast, keep that Voltaic Blaze burning on all targets, and most importantly just do not overcap on your Stormkeepers or your Tempests. It is highly unlikely that you're going to get Lightning Rod on all the targets, especially if there are 6 or 7 or 8 targets. But if there are 3 or 4 and you're easily able to get those lightning rods up, you can revert to just the Elemental Blast. Now for some quick elemental tips. When you're in your multi-target spec and you have to fight bosses, you shouldn't use Lava Burst at all. The best time to use it is if you get a surge proc and you need to adjust your positioning. Use Spirit Walker's Grace to cast on the move, and if there are evokers in your raid or party, get used to their time spiral timings. When they use this, you get a free cast of Spirit Walker's Grace, which allows you to use it even more often. Not many people are aware, but when you use Ghost Wolf, you can no longer be slowed below your normal movement speed, so you can use Ghost Wolf as sort of a get out of jail free card for those slow effects. Something I didn't mention in the other area is that if you are near overcapping on your Maelstrom, you should always spend your Maelstrom before casting other abilities. That about wraps up this basic guide. If you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the comments below the video, or I'm sometimes live on Twitch, on twitch.tv/Zyph_Mike, where you can feel free to drop into the chat and ask me any questions about Elemental Shaman. I will put my talent builds into the description below for you to have a look at, but updated talent builds and information can always be found on the Farseer class Discord. Thank you everyone for taking the time to watch, and I'll see you in the next video.